Hey Ken, how beneficial do you think this mini bye week that you guys got was for you, the coaching staff, and for the team, just as you reset for the final 5 weeks of the regular season?
I think anytime you could get a little time off and let guys recharge a little bit, hopefully get back healthy, get a lot of treatment in, do all that stuff. I think it could be beneficial. I think the biggest key is just refining your momentum and getting back going after a win and figure out ways to kind of keep that momentum going.
And then in terms of facing the Jets this weekend, how do you balance looking back at the first game and then planning ahead for this game? I know you'll see Mike White instead of Zach Wilson, so there's that difference there, but how do you kind of balance those two?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think schematically for them, they do what they do and they do it very well. So we just got to figure out ways to attack a sound defense that plays fast and create matchups for us and create ways to move the ball and get in the end zone. So it's a great challenge for us on offense. They're really good over there. They find ways to create issues for you in all levels of the defense, whether it's the defensive front, the linebackers, and then obviously the secondary and the guys they got outside as well. So for us, it's more about that than it is about anything else.
Thanks, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Ken. John Warrow, AP.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. You talked about refining your momentum. In the bigger picture, how much do you think the offense has maybe found some more momentum since that, in a month that has passed since you played the Jets, where you might have a few more answers to what defenses do to you?
Well, I think we're always looking for answers that defense are doing to us and trying to find ways to attack. And, whether that's run or pass or personnel variation, whatever it might be, we're constantly looking at ways to try to keep a defense off balance. So I think that's the constant evolution of a season is you kind of, you evolve as the season goes and you adjust based off of how you're getting played. And I think that's part of what a 17 game plus season is.
Right. And because it seems that maybe what Josh and the offense has had to face the past few weeks has maybe set it up better to be better prepared, to be better in rhythm, to find its rhythm more quickly than maybe you were when you played the Jets the last time.
I mean, I think again, every week is so different. Every week is you go into a game and a team might show you a bunch of unscouted looks. A team might show you, certain things that you thought were good aren't quite working for you, and you have to adjust. So every week is just so different in terms of kind of how you're attacking a defense and then how you react once the game's getting started. And I think that's part of what really good coaches do. You see around the league. They adjust in the course of the game, in the course of the season, and I think that's critical. And I think that's something that Josh and our guys and our coaching staff has been doing a good job of the past few weeks.
And just lastly, this will be the first time you face an opponent as an offensive coordinator for a second straight time. Does that, how do you approach that challenge now? And how much do you look back at the tape? And just how do you approach facing a team for the second time for the first time in your OC career?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a challenge. Anytime you're facing division opponents who know you and have a good kind of feel for what type of scheme you are and all that stuff. So I think there are definitely challenges, and it's something new for me and something that's going to be a good opportunity to kind of go out and just reset, look at what we did. Look where we can improve on in this game and hopefully find ways to be more successful and get the ball in the end zone and allow us to give us an opportunity to win.
Thanks, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Coach. I'm curious, when you bring someone in late in the season, this isn't an Odell Beckham question. I wouldn't do that specifically, but let's just say a veteran free agent, because I can use John Brown here, or Naeem Hines, versus maybe a younger guy, a guy that's been in a system related to you, like maybe John Brown did. Can you just kind of walk us through the onboarding process of how that works? Like, do you just give them a playbook right away? Do you crunch it? Do you bring them in and feel like, what do you like to do? Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, I think there's a balance there of not losing your identity and figuring out ways to incorporate the tools that you have. And I think you see that with Naheem Hines and kind of what we've progressed and the way we're trying to continue and incorporate him, the more he gets comfortable in the system. And that's the biggest thing. That's the hardest thing for these guys is, coming in the middle of the year, just learning the system, knowing where to go and knowing how to do it so that they could play fast and not think and just react to what they're seeing instead of thinking about what they're supposed to be doing. So the sooner you could get guys up to speed in that regard, the better off you are. And that's a constant challenge because obviously it is expansive. It is a lot of information sometimes for these guys. So it's a challenge for everybody, but I think that's where, having, guys that are coming in who are dedicated to their craft and willing to put in extra time really helps that.
So John played right away. I mean, you guys had just signed him with the practice squad. He got a handful of snaps. Was that made easier because he was kind of familiar with a lot of the system and terminology that you carried over from Brian?
I think that definitely helps when, he's been here in the past and he's had experience in the system, even though there's been, tweaks and changes from when he was first here, even with, when Dave's was still here and then obviously till now. So it's a credit to Smoke, JB, who came in and is, willing to learn, willing to kind of, hit the ground running and just soak in as much information he can so he could go out there and be effective and really do whatever we need him to do. And he's been completely unselfish about, anything that we've asked him to do, whether it's block, run route, whatever it might be, the scout team, whatever. He's been out there and he's been a great teammate to these guys and willing to do whatever it takes to help us be successful.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ken, just kind of going off Sal's question, I was curious, you guys did have Odell Beckham in for a visit on Friday. Just what do you think? Do you feel like there's a missing piece on this offense at all? Or what do you think maybe he could bring that you don't have on this offense?
Well, I think, the biggest thing is obviously he's a heck of a player, but, we feel like we've got a lot of great players on our team and anytime you could create opportunities to, create problems for defenses, that you're always looking at ways to do that, different ways to attack defense, whether it's personnel or scheme. So that would be another part of that. And but at the same time, we're really been, so happy with the guys that are here, that what they're doing. It would just be another piece to add to an already really strong group.
And then on a completely separate note, I was curious, James Cook obviously saw like a career high snaps and, carries and all that against the Patriots. Was there anything specifically that you saw from him going into the Patriots game that you thought you wanted to give him more opportunities? Was it the game plan? Like, what about that, provided James Cook with an extra opportunities against the Patriots?
Yeah, I think, it's very similar to previous weeks. It's, you set your plan up going into the week and then just kind of the way the game flows and the way things unfold, it at times it kind of works out like that, whether it's personnel variations or whether it's the rotation of the backs at that time. So I think there's a lot of factors going into that, but, we're so comfortable with all the guys that we got. I think we really try to make sure that we're making concerted effort to make sure if a guy's active on game day, because you only get so many, to make sure we're trying to utilize all those guys as much as possible.
Is there anything specifically you've seen from James in terms of developing as a rookie that has made you feel even more comfortable, getting him that level of involved in the offense?
I think just every week you see him continually get more and more comfortable. I think, he did a great job catching balls out of the backfield, getting north and south and creating opportunities for rack after the catch, just by being available and by, quick turning and getting north. And then obviously I think the way he's running the football, he's running hard. He's got great vision. He's been able to do a lot of different things for us that complete backs need to do in this league. And he's really kind of continued to evolve from a all three phases that a back needs to be. And that's, running the ball, receiving the ball, and then obviously in pass protection for Josh. So his continued growth, you just kind of see that as the year goes on. And again, like I really feel like we've got a bunch of guys in that room that you feel great about that can come in and play for you at any time. And I think that balance of which, those guys played, helps that room and helps those guys be fresh and gives us different dimensions.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ken, I know it's been a few days since the game at this point, but I wanted to ask you about Josh's touchdown pass to Gabe Davis. There were so many elements that made it just kind of a ridiculous play. Just what did you make of how it unfolded? And was there a particular, like the scramble, the sideline, the jump, anything that stood out the most to you maybe?
I think just in general, it's just he's able to create and do things that, really help our football team, and at times you're not always going to be able to call the perfect play. And there's a lot of times where the quarterback's got to, help you out either by, making a decision or being able to create and, extend the play like he did right there. So there's times where, they had a good defense call, but he got back, hit his back foot and outlet the ball, and those were great plays on that one. It's just a special play by him by extending it, and obviously, making a guy breaking a tackle there in the backfield and knowing where he's at on the field and not, running out of bounds. That's, those are things that sometimes get lost in the fold of how easy it is. Like, you're extending the play, somebody's on you, you break that tackle, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on the sideline. You've taken a sack because you stepped out of bounds on accident. So I think just that awareness was big by him. And then making sure it's a, calculated decision. It's not a ball into traffic where there's a bunch of defenders. I think he put it in as safe as a spot as he could to allow Gabe to come back for it as well. So, again, I feel like a lot of times that falls into our what we try to be is smart, not conservative in our decision-making at the quarterback position. I think that really embodied that.
When there are so many elements of that in one play, like we see him do a lot of those things separately throughout a game, of course, but is there one that's like the hardest to do in that split second when you mentioned like knowing where you are, the awareness, just all the different awareness factors? What is maybe the most difficult part of that?
It's a hard question because as somebody who played and probably would have been sacked 5 times before that, but it's hard because you don't know kind of that feeling. You don't know kind of the, those things that he can create, and he can do those things that a lot of times aren't coachable, and aren't things that, you don't really rep that in practice. You don't really, drill, shrugging off a defender and extending a play like he did. So a lot of times it's just those guys having great instincts and feel for the game. And at times you just got to chalk it up to, those guys doing that, and those guys, having those abilities that, at times you never want to take away, but at times you want to make sure we're being smart with it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ken, Mike Giardi, NFL Network. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I was going to ask you something different, but I've heard you say multiple times this year, the sort of the thought process of playing quarterback is be smart, but not conservative. Same with the offense. Does that come from anywhere? Did that carry over from Miami or some other stop that you had that sort of planted in your brain?
Yeah. I think it's just something that ever since I started coaching quarterbacks in this league, that it's something that we've kind of really stressed, because I think there so often it's like, I heard the analogy when I was younger of, you've got your box as a quarterback, and inside that box is all your reads and all your progression, all your footwork and all that stuff. And, that's the box that some of those quarterbacks live in, but the great ones are able to kind of step outside that box. And when they do, they make those plays work. And a lot of times those are the special plays. And I think that's something that has kind of followed me throughout my career, and where being smart, not conservative as a decision maker, as somebody who's constantly touching the ball, has to be, because you can't just come out and just constantly check it down or constantly be taking the safe play. Like you see all these great quarterbacks out there. There's times where, they're fitting balls into tight windows or they're taking shots downfield and giving their guys opportunities to play. And they're not, they're being calculated with it more so than anything. And I think, that's the biggest thing that we try to stress.
And how do you think that Josh, obviously there was a period where there was a lot of discussion about the turnovers, and how do you think his decision-making in that regard has sort of progressed here the last couple of weeks as you've continued to harp on it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just going back and looking at things and saying, okay, well, all right, was this one a freak deal? Could this one have happened to anybody, or is this preventable? And just going back and looking at those things, I think at times are really important. You go back to the, Detroit game, it's like the guy making a heck of a play to get his hand on the ball. There's times where you just can't do anything about those things, and those things will happen in the course of the year. But then there's other things you look at and say, okay, well, let's learn from this one and make sure we don't repeat it, make sure it doesn't happen again. So I think that constant learning that I think every player goes through, no matter what year they are, or how experienced they are, whether they're a rookie or in their 15th year in the league, there's constant things you can be learning from, and constant, development, and constant, growth of your game, because the game's constantly changing, whether it's your system or what defenses might be trying to do to you. So I think that's all part of playing the position.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Ken, you had a handful of snaps against the Patriots where you were using both Cook and Hines in the backfield for the same play. How would you describe do you think those were good plays? Like, how would you rate the efficiency of those plays together? And then do you think that's a dynamic we can see more of going forward?
Yeah, I think they were effective for us. I mean, obviously not all were, quote unquote good plays for us. Some we had some negatives, some we didn't execute well enough. But I think anytime you could create issues for a defense by personnel groupings and having good players out in the field like those two guys helps you. And I think again it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier of making sure we're doing things and maximizing the personnel that we have as much as possible, because again you only get so many up. So with the running back room that we have, and basically those three guys who are active each week, the abilities that they have, you want to make sure you're trying to take advantage of it, because usually only one's out there at a time. So when you get multiple guys out there at the same time, I think it creates issues. It creates different looks for a defense, and that just gives one more layer of your offense that somebody has to prepare for.
And then Josh's last performance against the Jets, I know we've talked about cutting down on the turnovers, and you just mentioned differentiating between, are these fluky plays or are these correctable ones? Where do you think Josh's interceptions, kind of looking back on the last game, where do you think those fell in that category?
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. I think some were a little bit preventable, whether it was Josh or our overall execution as an offense, in terms of being in the right spots, the routes, the call, so I think there's when you look at it as a whole, I think there was definitely some preventable things involved in that were not only, Josh, but overall as an offense. And then, some were, fluky as well, or great plays by the defense as well. They've got a good defense over there, and they create problems in a lot of different ways. So I think that's part of it.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Dorsey, Mookie Hawkins, Waffle Sports 1080. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. Coach, you ever play spades?
No, I have not actually.
You ever play spades? Okay, because I was about to say, because me and you sitting at the table and I ask you how many books you got, and you say I got 3, and then you end up making 6 or 7 of them. You be underpaying a little bit out there, but hey, I can say this though. Do you feel as a first-time play caller that you're getting a little bit more comfortable in opening up the playbook so far?
I think I've got a lot of trust in my guys, and I got a lot of trust in them going out and having a good feel for what we're trying to get done, and them executing. And when you have that, you feel like you could call anything for them, what on the sheet, So I think that's part of it is when you go into a game, making sure that you're comfortable and mainly your guys are comfortable with everything that you've got, so that you could just call a game freely, and you don't have to kind of, worry about, do I really want to call this or not? And you could just, you're calling what you feel like is the best way to attack the defense. So I think the guys that we got, the way the line is executing, the way Josh is making decisions, guys are going out and executing. It allows you some freedom in order to do that.
Absolutely. And speaking of a tough defense, how much did you learn about CJ Mosley last game that's going to help you prepare a little bit more going to this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously, I think, one of the leaders of that defense. I would imagine. I mean, he's been a heck of a player in this league for a very long time. Made a lot of plays and has really kind of come in there and solidified that that kind of middle of the defense and the core of what I think that defense is, and has a great feel kind of for what they're doing and making sure guys are in the right spots. So he does a great job over there, but he's got obviously a lot of guys around him as well, who create problems with their speed, their aggressiveness, and the way in which they play.
How important is Deion Dawkins this week, Coach?
I mean, I think obviously, Deion is a integral part for us and kind of what we do. Not only in the run game, but in pass protection and all those different areas. So, the missing him, I definitely think, we're excited to kind of whenever he gets back. At the same time, it was really great to see Quiss step in and do the job that he did last week against, some pretty good edge rushers that they got in New England. So to have the confidence to plug a guy like Quiss in, and play like he did in replacement of a guy like Deion gives you a lot of peace of mind.
Have a great week of practice, Coach. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
That's all today. Thanks, Ken.
All right. No problem. Thanks.